if I hold
live. You're live.
If I welcome everybody, Hare Krishna. Welcome to the live studios. We're back in the temple room of New Padre Ashram, Radha Govinda's temple, with all our lovely devotees sitting here, the Rasikas, the ones who would like to hear about Krishna. For that I'm deeply grateful. Thank you. Welcome all of you in cyberspace, wherever you are. Okay. We reached the. Oh, wait a second. Did you set it up with the verse that we're starting on?
Yes, 177. That's what we had.
Well done. Well done. I might.
I used the intelligence of others to figure that out.
Well, whatever you did, you did. Well done. Okay. Here we are, back with Narada Muni, Vyasadeva. Thank you, Bhakti, Katra. We had an initiation here today, and it was ecstatic. We have 4 new members of the Sampradaya, Sarvamangala Devi Dasi, and her husband, Madana Dana Prabhu, and Ukti Tantra, very unique name, and Yadutama, servant of the best of the others. So it was, I think it was recorded on Mayapur TV in Denver, so you might be able to watch it. And somebody, did you actually record it?
Part of it, not all.
Oh, what part of it?
The names and the
Just
and
that
the
part.
buyers.
Okay. All right. Okay, so here we are again. Every night, for the rest of my life, with devotees, I'm going to hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam for the pleasure of Srimad Prabhupada and devotees. And it is giving me new life by the minute, by the second. I can't recommend it highly enough. Okay. So we're going to Somebody told me last night that it was very loud through the, I guess because this is here. Anyway, welcome again to all those out of cyberspace. Now that I have my microphone on, maybe you can hear it better. But even if you can't, it's okay. You can now. Okay. Sanatana Goswami is glorifying the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarva Lokaik Kadrik Prada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of light to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad-Bhagavata Prabho Kalidvandoditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Mareka Bando Matsangin Madguru man mahadana, man nishtadaga madbhagya, mad ananda namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, saduta dayin, atini chochatakara, hanamun chagadachin mam, premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So here we are, first canto, 7th chapter, Srimad-Bhagavatam. Narada Muni has appeared and is instructing Srila Vyasadeva. Text 7. Simply by giving oral reception. What? Did you hear that? Simply by giving oral reception. That's exactly what we're doing right now. Now we'll hear what happens. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. Timely. 21st century America. There's enough lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness to go around, I think. It's, increasing like a forest fire, along with California and a few other states. Even here in Colorado, burning to the ground. You know what that means? Illicit sex, according to the Vedas. Okay, purport. There are various senses, of which the ear is the most effective. This sense works even when a man is deep asleep. One can protect himself from the hands of an enemy while awake, but while asleep, one is protected by the ear only. The importance of hearing is mentioned here in connection with attaining the highest perfection of life, namely, getting free from 3 material pangs. Everyone is full of lamentation at every moment. He is after the mirage of illusory things, and he is always afraid of his supposed enemy. These are the primary symptoms of the material disease. And it is definitely suggested herein that simply by hearing the message of Srimad-Bhagavatam, one gets attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And as soon as this is effected, the symptoms of the material disease disappear. Srila Vyasadeva saw the all-perfect Personality of Godhead, and in this statement it is clearly confirmed that the all-perfect Personality of Godhead is Sri Krishna. The ultimate result of devotional service is to develop genuine love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Love is a word which is often used in relation with man and woman, and love is the only word that can be properly used to indicate the relation between Lord Krishna and the living entities. The living entities are mentioned as Prakriti in the Bhagavad Gita, and in Sanskrit, Prakriti is a feminine object. The Lord is always described as the Parama Purusha, or the supreme male personality. Thus, the affection between the Lord and the living entities is something like that between the male and the female. Therefore, the term love of Godhead is quite appropriate. Loving devotional service to the Lord begins with hearing about the Lord. There is no difference between the Lord and the subject matter heard about Him. The Lord is absolute in all respects, and thus there is no difference between Him and the subject matter heard about Him. Therefore, hearing about Him means immediate contact with Him by the process of vibration of the transcendental sound. And the transcendental sound is so effective that it acts at once by removing all material affections mentioned above. As mentioned before, a living entity develops a sort of complexity by material association, and the illusory encagement of the material body is accepted as an actual fact. Under such false complexity, the living beings, under different categories of life, become illusioned in different ways. Even in the most developed stage of human life, the same illusion prevails in the form of many isms and divides the loving relation with the Lord, and thereby divides the loving relationship between man and man. By hearing the subject matter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, this false complexity of materialism is removed, and real peace in society begins, which politicians aspire for so eagerly in so many political situations. The politicians want a peaceful situation between man and nation, but at the same time, because of too much attachment for material domination, there is illusion and fearfulness. Therefore, the politicians' peace conferences cannot bring about peace in society. It can only be done by hearing the subject matter described in the Srimad-Bhagavatam about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The foolish politicians may go on holding peace and summit conferences for hundreds of years, but they will fail to achieve success until we reach the stage of reestablishing our lost relation with Krishna. The illusion of accepting the body as the self will prevail, and thus fearfulness will also prevail. As for the validity of Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are hundreds and thousands of evidences from revealed scriptures, and there are hundreds and thousands of evidences from personal experiences of devotees in various places like Vrindavana, Navadvipa, and Puri. Even in the Kaumudi dictionary, the synonyms of Krishna are given as the son of Yashoda and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parabrahman. The conclusion is that simply by hearing the Vedic literature, Srimad-Bhagavatam, one can have direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and thereby one can attain the highest perfection of life by transcending worldly miseries, illusion, and fearfulness. These are practical tests for one who has actually given a submissive hearing to the readings of Srimad-Bhagavatam. So here there's some differentiation being made between listening and hearing. They're two different things. Just to put yourself in the same room doesn't necessarily mean that you're hearing. But the Bhagavatam is so powerful that even if you agree to put yourself in front of that sound vibration, you get benefit even if you're not hearing completely, just by the sound. But if you're hearing with submissive oral reception, that means if you're understanding what you're hearing and accepting it as true, and embracing it in your heart, then that effect that's being described in this purport will be almost immediate. But it has to be continued. It's not just mechanical either. There are separate verses that say that not just by hearing, it's also by the mercy of Krishna. devotional service, bhakti yoga, is not a mechanical process, as many people who study yoga and get into yoga societies and begin what is called hatha yoga now in America. They're basically just trying to calm themselves down from the madness around them. There isn't much talk about, the ultimate goal of life and what is the goal of yoga. So it's not mechanical in the sense that not just by sitting down and putting yourself in the position of being able to hear the vibration, but it means you have to hear in such a way that Krishna is pleased. And from within your heart, when Krishna chooses you, then he will reveal himself to you. So our mentality should be one of intense eagerness and ambition. There is room for ambition in spiritual life. It's not that we just go into a corner and become shanti, 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 and that's it. No, ambition means we want to please Krishna. And we have to want to please Krishna very intensely in such a way that all of the other dross from our, consciousness will be cleaned. So when Krishna sees that you're serious, nashta prayusha bhajashu nityam bhagavata sevya. If you hear every day the Bhagavatam, and Krishna sees, what is it that breeds faith? Reliability over time. In anything, whether it be a relationship, whether it be a business, employer-employee relationship, whether it be, even the politicians, they spend a lot of money in propaganda to get us, to convince us that, they're going to do something good for us. Never happens, but anyway, the principle is there, right? So, yeah, we have to get Krishna's mercy. And by hearing about him, he becomes inclined to us. And the more he becomes inclined to us, the more we naturally become inclined to him. And there's a symbiotic relationship that goes on. And it builds and builds until Krishna becomes so eager to see you that he'll appear before you. That's what hearing the Bhagavatam means. It's not a cheap thing. It's not an easy thing. Text 8. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad-Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his own son, Sri Shukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. Purport. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the natural commentation on the Brahma Sutras, compiled by the same author. This Brahma Sutra, or Vedanta Sutra, is meant for those who are already engaged in self-realization. Srimad-Bhagavatam is so made that one becomes at once engaged in the path of self-realization simply by hearing the topics. Although it is especially meant for the Paramahamsas, or those who are totally engaged in self-realization, it works into the depths of the hearts of those who may be worldly men. Worldly men are all engaged in sense gratification, but even such men will find in this Vedic literature a remedial measure for their material diseases. Shukadeva Goswami was a liberated soul from the very beginning of his birth, and his father taught him Srimad-Bhagavatam. Amongst mundane scholars, there is some diversity of opinion as to the date of the compilation of Srimad-Bhagavatam. It is, however, certain from the text of the Bhagavatam that it was compiled before the disappearance of King Parikshit and after the departure of Lord Krishna. When Maharaj Parikshit was ruling the world as the king of Bharatavarsha, he chastised the personality of Kali. According to the revealed scriptures and astrological calculation, the age of Kali is in its 5,000th year. This was written in 1962. Therefore, Srimad-Bhagavatam was compiled not less than 5,000 years ago. Mahabharata was compiled before Srimad-Bhagavatam, and the Puranas were compiled before Mahabharata. That is an estimation of the date of compilation of the different Vedic literatures. The synopsis of Srimad-Bhagavatam was given before the detailed description under instruction of Narada. Srimad-Bhagavatam is the science for following the path of Nivritti Marga. The path of Pravritti Marga was condemned by Narada. That path is the natural inclination for all conditioned souls. So the difference between Pravritti and Nivritti, for you, those of you who don't know, the Pravritti Marg is the path of accumulating things and acting in such a way as to improve our lot in life, either in materially or in this life or in the next. And Nivritti Marg means the path towards liberation or renunciation. Text 9. Sri Shonaka asked Sutta Goswami. Sri Shukadeva Goswami was already on the path of self-realization, and thus he was pleased with his own self. So why did he take the trouble to undergo the study of such a vast literature? Purport. For the people in general, the highest perfection of life is to cease from material activities and be fixed on the path of self-realization. Those who take pleasure in sense enjoyment, or those who are fixed in material bodily welfare work, are called karmis. Out of thousands and millions of such karmis, one may become an atmarama by self-realization. Atma means self, and arama means to take pleasure. Everyone is searching after the highest pleasure, but the standard of pleasure of one may be different from the standard of another. Therefore, the standard of pleasure enjoyed by the karmis is different from that of the atmaramas. The atmaramas are completely indifferent to material enjoyment in every respect. Srila Shukadeva Goswami had already attained that stage, and still he was attracted to undergo the trouble of studying the great Bhagavatam literature. This means that Srimad-Bhagavatam is a postgraduate study, even for the Atmaramas, who have surpassed all the studies of Vedic knowledge. Text 10. Sutta Goswami said, all different varieties of Atmaramas, those who take pleasure in the Atma, or spirit self, especially those established on the path of self-realization, though freed from all kinds of material bondage, desire to render unalloyed devotional service under the personality of Godhead. This means that the Lord possesses transcendental qualities and therefore can attract everyone, including liberated souls. Purport. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained this Atmarama shloka very vividly before his chief devotee. This is a very important verse, actually. Atmaramas chamuniyo nigranta apyarukrame kurvan jahaitukim bhaktim itam bhuta guno harihi. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained this Atmarama verse, shloka, very vividly before his chief devotee, Srila Sanatana Goswami. He points out 11 factors in the shloka, namely 1. Atmarama, 2. Muniya, 3. Nirgranta, 4. Api, 5. Cha, 6. Urukrama, 7. Kurvanti, 8. Ahaitukim, 9. Bhaktim, 10. Itam Bhuta Guna, and 11. Hari. According to the Vishwa Prakasha Sanskrit dictionary, there are 7 synonyms for the word Atma, which are as follows. 1. Brahman, the absolute truth. 2, body, 3, mind, 4, endeavor, 5, endurance, 6, intelligence, and 7, personal habits. The word muniya refers to 1, those who are thoughtful, 2, those who are grave and silent, 3, ascetics, 4, the persistent, 5, mendicants, 6, sages, and 7, saints. The word nirgranta conveys these ideas. 1, one who is liberated from nations. 2, one who has no connection with scriptural injunction, that is, who is freed from the obligation of the rules and regulations mentioned in the revealed scriptures, like ethics, Vedas, philosophy, psychology, and metaphysics. In other words, the fools, illiterate urchins, and so on, who have no connection with regulated principles. 3, a capitalist, and also 4, one who is penniless. That's nirgranta. According to the Shabdakosha dictionary, the affix ni is used in the sense of 1, certainty, 2, counting, 3, building, and 4, forbiddance. And the word granta is used in the sense of wealth, thesis, vocabulary, and so on. The word urukrama means the one whose activities are glorious. Krama means step. The word urukrama specifically indicates the Lord's incarnation as Vamana, who covered the whole universe by immeasurable steps. Lord Vishnu is powerful, and his activities are so glorious that he has created the spiritual world by his internal potency and the material world by his external potency. By his all-pervading features, he is everywhere present as the supreme truth, and in his personal feature, he is always present in his transcendental abode of Goloka, Vrindavana, where he displays his transcendental pastimes in all variegatedness. His activities cannot be compared to anyone else's, and therefore the word urukrama is just applicable to him only. According to the Sanskrit verbal arrangement, kurvanti refers to doing things for someone else. Therefore, it means that the Atmaramas render devotional service unto the Lord not for personal interest, but for the pleasure of the Lord, urukrama. Hetu means causal. There are many causes for one's sense satisfaction, and they can be chiefly classified as material enjoyment, mystic powers, and liberation, which are generally desired by progressive persons. As far as material enjoyments are concerned, they are innumerable, and the materialists are eager to increase them more and more because they are under the illusory energy. There is no end to the list of material enjoyments, nor can anyone in the material universe have all of them. As far as the mystic powers are concerned, they are 8 in all, such as to become minutest in form, to become weightless, to have anything one desires, to lord it over the material nature, to control other living beings, to throw earthly globes in outer space, etc. These mystic powers are mentioned in the Bhagavatam. The forms of liberation are 5 in number. Therefore, unalloyed devotion means service to the Lord without desire for the above-mentioned personal benefits. And the powerful personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, can be fully satisfied by such unalloyed devotees, free from all sorts of desires for personal benefit. Unalloyed devotional service of the Lord progresses in different stages. Practice of devotional service in the material field is of 81 different qualities. And above such activities is the transcendental practice of devotional service, which is one, and is called sadhana bhakti. When unalloyed practice of sadhana bhakti is matured in transcendental love for the Lord, the transcendental loving service of your Lord begins gradually developing into 9 progressive stages of love under the headings of attachment, love, affection, feelings, affinity, adherence, following, ecstasy, and intense feelings of separation. The attachment of an inactive devotee develops up to the stage of transcendental love of God. Attachment of an active servitor develops up to the stage of adherence. And that for a friendly devotee develops up to the stage of following. And the same is also the case for the parental devotees. Devotees in conjugal love develop ecstasy up to the stage of intense feelings of separation. These are some of the features of unalloyed devotional service of the Lord. According to the Hari Bhakti Sudodaya, the import of the word itam bhuta is complete bliss. Transcendental bliss in the realization of impersonal Brahman becomes comparable to the scanty water contained in the pit made by a cow's hoof. It is nothing compared with the ocean of bliss of the vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The personal form of Lord Sri Krishna is so attractive that it comprehends all attraction, all bliss, and all tastes, rasas. These attractions are so strong that no one wants to exchange them for material enjoyment, mystic powers, and liberation. There is no need of logical arguments in support of this statement, but out of one's own nature, one becomes attracted by the qualities of Lord Sri Krishna. We must know for certain that the qualities of Lord Sri we must know for certain that the qualities of the Lord have nothing to do with mundane qualities. All of them are full of bliss, knowledge, and eternity. There are innumerable qualities of the Lord, and one is attracted by one quality while another is attracted by another. Great sages, such as the 4 bachelor devotees, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sananda, and Sanat Kumara, were attracted by the fragrance of flowers and tulsi leaves, anointed with the pulp of sandalwood offered at the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, Shukadeva Goswami was attracted by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Shukadeva Goswami was already situated in the liberated stage, yet he was attracted by the pastimes of the Lord. This proves that the quality of his pastimes has nothing to do with material affinity. Similarly, the young cowherd damsels were attracted by the bodily features of the Lord, and Rukmini was attracted by hearing about the glories of the Lord. Lord Krishna attracts even the mind of the goddess of fortune. He attracts in special cases the minds of all young girls. He attracts the minds of the elderly ladies by parental affection. He attracts the mind of the male in the humors of servitude and friendship. The word Hari conveys various meanings, but the chief import of the word is that He, the Lord, vanquishes everything inauspicious and takes away the mind of the devotee by awarding pure transcendental love. By remembering the Lord in acute distress, one can be free from all varieties of miseries and anxieties. Gradually, the Lord vanquishes all obstacles on the path of devotional service of a pure devotee, and the result of 9 devotional activities, such as hearing and chanting, becomes manifested. By his personal features and transcendental attributes, The Lord attracts all psychological activities of a pure devotee. Such is the attractive power of Lord Krishna. The attraction is so powerful that a pure devotee never hankers for any one of the four principles of religion. These are the attractive features of the transcendental attributes of the Lord. And adding to this the words api and cha, one can increase the imports unlimitedly. According to Sanskrit grammar, there are 7 synonyms for the word api. So by interpreting each and every word of this shloka, one can see unlimited numbers of transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna that attract the mind of a pure devotee. So the import of this is that Krishna consciousness is a science. It's a spiritual science. It's a deep spiritual science. It isn't just sentiment. And our approach generally in the material world, especially in this time that we're living in now, is to go for a sentiment, to go for the emotion. So therefore you'll see all these churches where they'll get everybody ejected and they'll bring somebody up the stage and say, all right, stand up, I believe. And everybody just goes, yeah, we believe too, and that's it. And then they go back to their homes and they do the same things until the next cheater that comes through gets them to do the same thing. And it's just a joke. It's a joke. There's no philosophy. There's no spiritual science. They don't feel the need to understand because they've lost their capacity. They've lost their spiritual intelligence through intense absorption in sense gratification. And especially since the internet was developed, and it has developed, came into being and it's developed, sense gratification is so easily accessible to everyone, even kids. Even young kids. You want to keep your kid quiet? Here. Okay. And they're just into cartoons and worse. Games, and they teach them violence and teach them hate and teach them so many things. And also some fast-thinking, manipulative games and those kinds of things are also there. It's not all bad, but the vast majority of it is, and the end result of what we see in physics, the resultant vector is very bad. Very bad. And we're all experiencing it to one degree or another. Okay, there's a saying, 'tis folly to be wise, where ignorance is bliss. Text 11. Srila Shukadeva Goswami, son of Srila Vyasadeva, was not only transcendently powerful, he was also very dear to the devotees of the Lord. Thus he underwent the study of this great narration, Srimad-Bhagavatam. Purport. According to the Brahma Vivarta Purana, Srila Shukadeva Goswami was a liberated soul even within the womb of his mother. Srila Vyasadeva knew that the child after his birth would not stay home. Therefore he, Vyasadeva, impressed upon him the synopsis of the Bhagavatam so that the child could be made attached to the transcendental activities of the Lord. Now, this is, I guess, one little detail. It's already been spoken about, but some of you may not have heard this. Shukadeva Goswami was liberated inside the womb. He was completely detached. He didn't want to come out because he knew that if he comes out, he's going to be attached and bothered, and he wouldn't be able to meditate on Brahman. He was an impersonalist, actually. So then, what this means is that he impressed upon him the synopsis of the Bhagavatam, meant he explained to him from within the womb, him outside, to him within the womb, the synopsis of the Bhagavatam, not the whole 18,000 slokas. And he still wouldn't come out. He stayed in there for, don't worry, we've got a pregnant woman in the house, 16 years. Just try to imagine how it would be like to carry a child for 16 years. Yeah, you don't want to go there, definitely. And, so then Vyasadeva thought, this is very dangerous, both for her and for him. So he went and he got Krishna, because Krishna was present on the planet at the time. And he brought Krishna. And Krishna spoke to Shukadeva Goswami within the womb. And he said, look, you're creating a lot of disturbance for your mother and father. So I know who you are, and I know what you're destined to do. So please come out. And I promise you that you will not become attached to Maya. You will not get vanquished by Maya. You will stay liberated. And because he's liberated and he heard the sound of the Supreme Personality of God, he says, oh, okay. And then he came out. Don't ask me how that happened. It's not there, the detail isn't there, it's not worth worrying about. Somehow or other it happened. Right? And then as soon as he comes out, what does he do? Runs away. And Vyasa said, wait, but I would have finished the Bhagavatam, but he's running after him, Anyway, as the story goes, eventually Shukadeva Goswami did come back, and he heard the whole Bhagavatam from his father. And then he started to just wander. And he came upon Parikshit Maharaj and all these great saintly kings and sages and rishis from the top of the universe, down to the earth. And all of them, he was naked. He was 16 years old. All the bodily parts were developed, naked, running around. All the women and children were laughing at him and throwing things at him and, joking with him, because they thought he was a madman. But his physiognomy was such, he was so beautiful. He didn't bathe. He looked all dirty and he was just walking around. But they could all see him for what he was. They saw the physiognomy and they said, and everyone stood up. All the sages, all the kings, only 2 or 3 people didn't stand up. Vyasadeva, his father, Brahma, and I think Narada, Shiva, or something like that. Some really top demigods. Therefore, it says, after his birth, the child was still more educated in the subject of Bhagavatam by recitation of the actual poems. The idea is that generally the liberated souls are attached to the feature of the impersonal Brahman, with the monistic view of becoming one with the Supreme Whole. But by the association of pure devotees like Vyasadeva, even the liberated soul becomes attracted to the transcendental qualities of the Lord. By the mercy of Sri Narada, Srila Vyasadeva was able to narrate the great epic of Srimad-Bhagavatam, and by the mercy of Vyasadeva, Srila Shukadeva Goswami was able to grasp the import. The transcendental qualities of the Lord are so attractive that Srila Shukadeva Goswami became detached from being completely absorbed in impersonal Brahman and positively took up the personal activity of the Lord. Practically, he was thrown from the impersonal conception of the Absolute, thinking within himself that he had simply wasted so much time in devoting himself to. In other words, he realized more transcendental bliss with the personal feature than the impersonal. And from that time, not only did he himself become very dear to the Vishnu Janas, or the devotees of the Lord, but also the Vishnu Janas became very dear to him. The devotees of the Lord, who did not wish to kill the individuality of the living entities, and who desire to become personal servitors of the Lord, do not very much like the impersonalists. And similarly, the impersonalists who desire to become one with the Supreme are unable to evaluate the devotees of the Lord. Thus, from time immemorial, these two transcendental pilgrims have sometimes have sometimes been competitors. In other words, each of them likes to keep separate from the other because of the ultimate personal and impersonal realizations. Therefore, it appears that Srila Shukadeva Goswami also had no liking for the devotees. But since he himself became a saturated devotee, he desired always the transcendental association of the Vishnu Janas. And the Vishnu Janas also liked his association since he became a personal Bhagavata. Thus, both the son and the father were completely cognizant of transcendental knowledge in Brahman. And afterwards, both of them became absorbed in the personal features of the Supreme Lord. The question as to how Shukadeva Goswami was attracted by the narration of the Bhagavatam is thus completely answered by this shloka. Text 12. Sutta Goswami thus addressed the rishis headed by Shonaka. Now I shall begin the transcendental narration of the Lord, Sri Krishna, and topics of the birth, activities, and deliverance of King Parikshit, the sage amongst the kings, as well as topics of the renunciation of the worldly order by the sons of Pandu. Purport: that he personally incarnates himself